Hello, today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a basket with 3 rods. I'm using a paper twist material for my foundation rod and some raffia, which comes from a palm tree. I have some in the natural color, and then I have some that has been dyed black with RIT dye. And I'm using a tapestry needle here. The design that I'm going to try and do is something like this. So I'm going to have some triangle shapes radiating out. So let's get started. I've submerged the raffia in some warm water in a bowl to keep it nice and damp while I'm stitching. Raffia comes from a palm tree and it is natural material, so it grows at different widths. You can stitch your basket with whatever widths you wish. For this basket, I'm going to try and split it down in half like this and pull apart so that the raffia pieces are about a quarter or so. You know, it's going to be different at the ends, but this looks to be about the width that I'm going to use today. So choose a nice long piece to start, and then take the end like this, pinch it, and slide the eye of the needle over. Pull through several inches to secure it. Now, with your foundation rod, you're going to take, I have a nice long piece, and you can always splice in another piece if your piece isn't long enough, and I'll show you how to do that later in this video series. But for now, I'm just starting with a nice long piece. I'm folding down about 1/2 inch, and I'm taking the end of the raffia and tying a single knot. And then you're going to want to hold the tail along with the foundation and wrap towards you, untwisting the raffia so that it covers. And don't pull too tight. You want to leave it a little bit, so that you can get the needle in between here when we start stitching. It doesn't really matter if you cover this edge because stitches are going to cover it later. And then you're going to carry on untwisting and wrapping past about the same amount, same, a little longer there. And then you bend like this, and then pull your needle and take your first stitch by slipping through the rods. And then take another stitch next to it, untwisting the raffia so that it lies flat as possible. And take another stitch, and then take another stitch next to that. If you hear snoring in the background, that's my dog. Nothing I can do about that. And keep stitching all around your basket start. Taking stitches not too tight because you're gonna need to stitch through. And see how I'm bending the foundation rod around. When you come to the corner, you're gonna take extra stitches to try and encourage a circle to shape out from more of an oval start. So we're just going to radiate some stitches in the corner here in the same spot. I feel like I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 stitches on that corner in the same spot right there. And then now I can move over. And you're always going to be stitching over the free rod and the wrapped rod right below it, right through. You can pierce the raffia in the stitch before. You don't have to go in between. Raffia is forgiving like that. When you stitch with it, you can stitch through it. And now we've come to the other corner. We're gonna, and you're try and keep this paper twisting in the same direction if it wants to open, and get a nice bend. And then when you come around to the end here, again, we're gonna take multiple stitches in the same spot to get that corner going. Okay. So raffia can be difficult sometimes and want to tangle on itself. So it didn't want to go through. So I'm going to gently pull it, starting to split. This can happen when it starts to dry. So just dip your finger in water and re-wet it. So it, see, it started to split right there. So it's going to be a little bit unruly. I can try and thread it back in the broken spot, or I can just, here, let's see if I can get it. I got it. Okay. Okay, now it's a mess. I'm going to start over. So in the circumstance where you have a broken, go beneath it like this, fold it in half and shove it over. Okay, my daughter's friend showed up, so the dogs barked, so I had to start over. So if you have raffia that starts to split, wet it again with your fingers, and then below the point where the broken part is, fold it in half, slide it over the needle, pull it through, and try and keep the needle below that point where the broken piece is right there until you get closer to it. So, and then we can carry on stitching. We're still on the corner, so still covering that corner. Okay, so I think one more stitch on the corner, and then because we're starting our next round, instead of going into this right here, there's actually 2 rods right here. We have the free rod, there's the wrapped rod, and another wrapped rod underneath it. So we're going to now poke in only over, we're going over the free rod and 1 wrapped rod. So wiggle through right there. This is helping us spiral out in our basket shape. And then next to it, any kind of piece like that, you can just clip it. And you can see how we've moved the basket start out. And keep stitching around until you need to start a new raffia, and that'll be the next thing I show you how to do. When your raffia is really short so that you can't easily take another stitch, or it's ratty, or you're changing colors, then just pull it off the needle and thread up another needle, another raffia piece, and then come through the same exact stitch that you just left and pull through so that you have about the same amount. And you can just twist these together, or you can tie them, whatever you prefer, and then hold them along the free rod underneath and stitch over it. Take your next stitch in the same spot or really close right next door and pull through. And just see how you just carry on enclosing the old tails together. You can, if your raffia is ever narrower, you can take 2 stitches in the same spot to make it wider, and that way you don't have to waste raffia. So, and then in the corners, we're still taking multiple stitches, maybe 2 and 1, just to get around the corner. Whoops, keep catching the back here. There. And then just, you know, make sure you look at the back and make sure you're enclosing this. And I would say once you stitched over it about an inch or so, it's safe to just clip it off, or you could just keep stitching. It doesn't really matter. Just if it's in your way, you can stitch it, you can clip it. And we're not really counting stitches, we're just making nicely balanced, neatly stitched basket beginning. So carry on stitching like this, and I'll come back further along to show the next steps. When the basket bottom is about 2 inches, you can add another rod and start coiling with 2 rods. So I've cut a slant on the tip of another rod, and I'm going to stick it in underneath the other rod and stitch around. At first it's kind of hard to hold. As soon as you take some stitches, it'll stay in place. I'm gonna stitch around, holding the 2 in place. So I will stitch a full round around over 2 free rods and the covered rod below. I've completed a round going over 2 rods, and now I'm going to add a 3rd rod. And so we would just push this lower rod a little to the side. I've cut a slant and slip it in next to it underneath so that there is a rod on top and 2 rods underneath. And then take a stitch over all 3, and they should be in a triangle shape on top of the prior round, and continue on stitching over in the same way, all the way around.